All righty. Shall we go, Cal? I'm going to say hello to everybody. How about
Do
that?
it. That'd
We're
be
at
great.
12:01, right? So
Yeah,
let me
let's
just
go.
so let me just say this. We talked a little bit about this, but today we gather with this collective exhale. You feel it? Because as justice has been served. And the comments that I am reading from communities across the nation really do speak to this collective sense now of hope. Hope that this verdict that's been rendered does represent an accountability that can be a foundation,
Yeah.
right, for building trust moving forward. I so hope that's the case.
Yeah.
I just know we all want to be part of that being the case,
Yeah.
right? And we all know that there is more to do and more to come. But a jury in Minneapolis, Minnesota yesterday delivered a verdict that inspires a belief that that work to move forward can do just that. And Kelly and I will talk about that a little bit, but let me just say hi, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to Refresh. I swear in this time of pandemic, I can't be refreshed enough. This is our time to connect, to be inspired, to learn something. And, Lisa Tepper, ultimately to feel a bit better for this time we spend together. And spending time together with you is always great. I have to say, I do find comfort in this. I really do. And having it so validated this past Friday at our annual Generation W event was so special and continues to be special because that refreshment from there does stay with us for a good long while. And that's the new, and those are the emails I'm still getting for so many people. So thank you to all of you who have attended that's joining us today. If you have not, we'll talk a little bit at the end. We do have links available for donation that you too can be infused with the spirit of being intentional. We learned a lot. And I look forward to talking about it with Kelly and getting some of her reactions because she's been involved with us for quite a long time. You may recall Kelly Wallace from her days on CNN. She was a White House reporter. She was an iVillage correspondent, which was an NBC company, which is one of the first digital content companies that really were focused on women. She's a mom of 2 girls, and today she's a senior leader at TrailRunner Communications. I have to say, Kelly is an excellent writer. She's an excellent communicator. She conveys the challenges of others. I would say the challenges and their triumphs, as well as giving voice to many of her own as she continues on her journey of challenge, which I think is so generous of her to share because it enlightens us and it lifts us up. So Kelly Wallace, without further ado, I am so happy, I really am, that you were with us today. How are you doing?
You brought tears to my eyes by your opening comments about the verdict yesterday. And then I'm so honored and thrilled to be here. And what a generous introduction. I have always said, I'm so glad to be in your orbit and I want to stay in that orbit. And all of the other women and men who are in your orbit, I know they agree with me and they know exactly what I mean. So thrilled to be here.
So thrilled, so thrilled. So listen, I want to tell people a little bit more about you, and you're going to help me do that.
Sure.
All right. Have you always been wanting to be a storyteller or a journalist? It's funny. We will talk about, is journalism and storytelling antithetical? But is that something you've always wanted to do?
Yeah, I like to think that they're connected and one and the same. Yes, it was in high school. I'll date myself here, so all the younger people watching, in 1981 in high school, and came home like most high school kids, put on the TV, and that was the assassination attempt on then President Ronald Reagan's life. And it was news coverage, live coverage. And I point to that because I watched it, but I wasn't just watching it for the news. I was watching it for how they were telling it. And it was just around that time where I thought, that is what I want to do. I want to be out there breaking news, telling stories, being the person on camera to do it. But to me, I always thought it was a little bit of a dream, like being an Olympic figure skater, which didn't quite happen. So I put it there. And I went to college and I really thought, business maybe that would be a practical place to go. And it wasn't until I sort of tail end of my college experience where I thought, no, I got to go pursue this dream. I don't want to wake up one day and be, in my 50s and say, should have, could have, would have. And so that's how I pursued it. But I am somebody who actually wanted to do this as a younger person. Actually followed a local news reporter in New York, Shelley Strickler, who used to work at WOR Radio for a day, covering City Hall.
WOR. That was
Yes,
Channel 9 in New York.
exactly. And but it still felt like a dream until I got out of college, and I thought, no, I want to make this happen.
I just want to go back to this line. I think it's important. I did not want to wake up in my 50s and say, I wish I
went for my dream. I wish I tried it. I tell people at all ages now that if you have something that you really want to do, you really want to give it a shot, give it a shot. You'll never know until you do it. I consider my proudest moment of my career getting in my car, no air conditioning and no radio, by the way. Like, think about that now. 1996, driving from Washington to Albuquerque, New Mexico to try to be a local news on-air reporter. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know if I could write with deadline pressure. Just everything else has been sort of icing on the cake after that, because I went for it, I tried it, and I didn't have to wake up one day and say, what would have happened? Why didn't I do it? So I really encourage people, if you have something you're really passionate about, to just try it, explore it, give it a shot. You either will love it, or you just know that you did it and you can move on and say, I did that, not for me. I'm going to go try something else.
Yeah. And the fact that we just seem to have a longer time to develop, right? I think the fact that as a population, we're healthier, we live longer, right? It's funny, you say you don't want to wake up in your 50s and say, I wish I would have done it. And yet the lifespan in the 1700s was like 40.
Well,
now,
right. No,
now
and
telling us we're going to be living to 150. Well, maybe not us, but maybe our kids.
I know. No, but it's a great point, because I still think, and I see women and men doing this all the time, your 50s can be middle age, can also be another chance to say, you know what, I never did this and I want to go do it. Right. So I don't know for me what that journey is. I'd like to write. I'd like to write books. I'd like to, who knows, but I do think that it doesn't have to be. So if you're somebody who didn't do what you wanted to do for many years, and now you're in your 50s, 60s, whatever, it's still the time to do it. So I think that's a good point to make.
Yeah, we're starting off with encouragement already, right? And inspiration. Now, Trisha wants to know, why New Mexico? Why did you?
Trisha, you go where you get the offer. You only need, I tell this also to people, I sent out, I don't know, 50, 75, maybe 100 resumes. That was a time where you actually sent the actual hard copy and the actual VHS tape. Most of our younger viewers in the audience are like, what's a VHS tape? And received rejection letter after rejection letter. I have saved those rejection letters, which are very inspirational. I only got 2 offers. I got one offer in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, but that was going to be a producer 3 days a week and then a reporter 2 days. And then I got an offer in Albuquerque, New Mexico, to be a reporter 5 days a week. So didn't choose it. It chose me. And so, yeah, I tell people you only need one offer, and then you go from there.
I know, but there is something about this pile of rejections that happen, especially in our young life as we're going out, that seem to be, we think it's a message that says you're not worthy, but it's not about how worthy we are. It's just this conflation of all these different variables we can't control. You get one, and then you become Kelly Wallace.
Well, yeah, that's kind of you to say. You get one, and then you try it, and then you have a track record to build on, and then you can get more and more opportunity. I mean, I'm trying to remember what I was like. I was sort of late 20s. I guess I was so determined. So the rejection letters came. It's never fun to get the rejection letters, but they didn't deter me. I just knew I wanted to do this. The only way I was going to do it, I did try at CNN. Could I do it at CNN? But it wasn't happening for me. I really needed to go to a smaller market and get experience. So I didn't let them hold me back. And I try to tell people now there, so many factors, as you said. It's competitive, being in the right place at the right time. My news director, Tana Lang, also, she was the kind of news director that said, you know what, I'll give a chance to someone who hasn't been an on-air correspondent but she's been an associate producer and a producer for years at CNN, and I think she can do this. Many other news directors probably said, no, she hasn't been an on-air correspondent. So Albuquerque is not the hugest market, but it's a top 50 market. And so many people started a much smaller market when you're having your first on-air job. So it was also having the person who had the, confidence and said, I like CNN. I know that she has this background. You have to have that right person at the right time as well, too.
All right. Well, Sherry's going to get ready for this clip. Sherry, get the ready clip. We're going to see Kelly's life in careers. But before we do that, I just want to make sure we say hello to everybody, Kelly. We have, it's just, oh my gosh, it's so good. So on Facebook, we want to say to Erin Colwell's on the West Coast, and Carla Castile Edgar. Hello, Carla. And Ashley Proud, our friend from Mayo Clinic. And of course, here we have Lisa Tupper. Thank you, Joy. I'm so glad our refresh is back with you for sure. Nice to meet you, Callie Harnage, and Jennifer and Jeannie. Jeannie said she went to her first GenW and she loved it. So we're going to give you some more GenW highlights. Irene Britt is on, your fellow Women in America person. We love you, Irene. Hey, Glory and Emily and Amy. It's just great to be with all of you. It truly is. Hi, Linnea. How are you? And Maggie. And I just have to say this. We had this whole highlight thing for GenW. I don't know, Marty Evans, Admiral Evans is on with us today. It is an honor always. And you remember Admiral Evans.
Of course,
yeah. For all of you who don't know Admiral Evans, she was the first woman admiral actually to lead an installation in the Navy. She's gone to be a mentor to so many, including me. And there is that moment in this video where she is moderating and she asks all of the women currently in service to stand up. I think I saw it a dozen times, and every single time I saw it, I teared up just from the power of that. So Marty, I'm so glad you're here, and Melinda's on, and Nicole and Rena. Oh my God, it's just growing and growing and growing. And Vicky, and Stephen, thank you, Stephen, for being with us. So Sherry, let's take a look at the career in video montage of Kelly Wallace.
Oh, look at the hair.
Isn't this funny?
Oh, okay. So funny. That's so funny. Yeah, those were my, White House years covering President Bush.
CNN White House correspondent Kelly Wallace joins us now with more from Washington. Kelly?
Well, Andrea, President Clinton will hold a strategy session with his Middle East policy team this evening here at the White House. And in case you thought this recent episode might slow Mr. Clinton down, think again.
iVillage is one of the top sites for women. 30 million women come here every month for content, conversation, and community. And I think
awesome women, CNN correspondents who go back way back to your 20s,
way back.
I know. Way back.
way back.
Only a few minutes ago, right?
Producing in the DC bureau. Who'd have thunk you two would be on talking about being moms, right? But Kelly Wallace covers parenting for us at our.
Love that. So Sherry, that was amazing. Well, Sherry's incredible to put that together. A couple of those clips, a friend of mine who's a longtime CNNer, and he recently left, and he loves YouTube. He has just found, likes watching old CNN clips. So he keeps sending me the couple of clips that I shared with Sherry, those came from him. And it's just a hoot to see all those experiences. The hair is very funny to see how it's changed. But I love it. And that last clip, Brooke Baldwin, I've mentioned, she's amazing. And she's a CNN correspondent who just left and wrote a great book about women coming together called Huddle, which I hope she'll be on a refresh coming up. But Dana Bash was on with me, and how great. When I left the White House at CNN, she took my place as a White House reporter. And so that was just so fun to be on with her. And she's obviously gone on to have a great career at CNN.
All right. Now, how did you get to be, isn't that like one of the plum positions?
A White House correspondent?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, no. And I think it's also good for people to know, I worked at CNN for years. I was there for 6 years, went to New Mexico, and then was trying to get back to CNN, but CNN wouldn't hire me. The only job I could get was at Fox News Channel in Washington as a producer / correspondent. So I would produce a lot behind the scenes, and then once in a while I would be on the air. Well, it was 1999, and there was stuff going on in Kosovo. And so we started getting into 24-hour coverage from the Pentagon. So Fox said, okay, Kelly, you go. And CNN then started to see me on the air at Fox News Channel and expressed interest. They had some openings at the White House. And so I interviewed and whatnot. And interestingly, because Fox wasn't happy about that, but I wasn't under contract with Fox, and they had offered me weekend White House, weekday reporter, but the CNN offer of White House 5 days a week was a much bigger offer. Roger Ailes, a name that everybody knows, was head of Fox News at the time. And he said I was making a major mistake, that Fox News was going to be number one and CNN would be a follower. Yeah, I think I made the right call. I made the right choice.
Right? So you were there right in the beginning. By the way, Lisa Shallot's on. We say hello to Lisa, always great, and Rowena. How did it feel covering presidents?
Unbelievable.
Moment?
Oh, and I considered it a privilege. I could still be a tough reporter and ask hard questions, but when you walk through, the Northwest Gate and you're walking to the West Wing or the pit where we would cover the White House. I mean, I'm a kid from Brooklyn, first in my family to go away to college. Like Kelly Wallace from Garrison Beach is covering the White House is incredible. And I will tell you this, that I was covering then President Clinton, and it was 1999, 2000. That was when the presidential campaign, all the attention was on Al Gore and George Bush. No one really cared about Bill Clinton. So I got what's considered like the first chair for CNN, meaning I would be the person at CNN who would likely get a question. I had my microphone right here. I tell you, my heart was beating so rapidly. I thought for sure you could hear it. I was so nervous. I still to this day would get nervous when I would ask a question of the president, because it's the president. And it was just an incredible experience, hard 24/7. And I could still be tough and ask tough questions, but it was unlike anything. And I remember when I was covering President Bush, I also got to ask a question at a big news conference. And the president said my name. He said, Kelly. And I thought, the president just said my name. He knows my name. It was really, really great. Loved it.
So through that lens, Cal, 1999, we're now in 2021. Coverage of the White House has changed. News has changed. Through your filter of then to now, what kind of comparisons would you make? What are you seeing that's different?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things, when I was covering the White House, we didn't have social media, right? So, Facebook, Twitter, et cetera, started in the latter part of the 2000s. So number one, there is this pressure, I do feel it for journalists, that they're constantly reporting in a way. They're constantly producing content. And it used to be, right, you would do live shots and you would do a package and you would know that that's immediate. But now I just feel like at 24/7, journalists are actively on the story. So much more is live. I mean, it's live, and not as much of the same kind of time taken for the analysis pieces. I was saying recently during the first impeachment of President Trump, I remember I was just so busy with my job. I just wanted to see at night just kind of an overview of what happened during the day. I couldn't find it on television news because it's much more, immediate. And I think there's also this sense of opinion that's moved in. Now, obviously we have Fox News Channel with its own point of view. We have MSNBC also with its own point of view, but even CNN, a network I love so much, I feel like it has changed. I think anchors and reporters can say things and have kind of a point of view on the air versus what we didn't have that many years ago. And I think the Trump administration changed things. I think if something were a blatant lie, for reporters to not call it out seemed hard to do. So I think it's changed, and I think it's only going to kind of continue to change in the future.
For the better?
Some for the better. I mean, I feel like the 24/7 nature of coverage, I would say investigative journalism that we've seen is some of the best. There are many more outlets now. You don't just have to go work at 60 Minutes. You can be working for a digital outlet. You can be working for, a startup. So I think there are many more outlets, many more opportunities. I think we have to watch the siloed sense of journalism, and we have to watch it where if people are only watching a certain network and then they're getting that point of view, are they being exposed to other points of view? Are they being influenced by that point of view? If we're seeing it inside kind of your mainstream media, both television and print, I think we want to be watching that and watchful and make sure that there is always going to be kind of a impartial, independent assessment of what's happening and where we are. And I think it's still there, but I think we have to watch that.
As Irene says, I love the news when it was the news. Now it's all opinion. So I've moved to just get the news read to me on PBS. By the way, I actually do that. I watch
Judy Woodruff.
I watch Judy, yes.
Judy, I mean, she's the best. She's actually, I was working with her as a producer, and I wanted to do it anyway, but working with her at the UN conference on women in Beijing, when Hillary Clinton said,
right,
women's rights are human rights and human rights are women's rights. She's the best. So you're going to get the journalism, the news straight to you, but not a lot of other places, which I think has changed quite a bit.
Yeah, totally. And I think all of us, and ladies, please, and men, pop your questions in here. I want to know some of your favorite moments, but I also want to go back into the more personal side of this. It's so easy. We go through our resume, which is we did this and then we went here when we're there. There's the other resume we don't see, which is the angst, right? The self-questioning, right? The feeling of rejection, the feeling not worthy. Like, how do I get to the next step? Will anyone ever hire me? You've been in a lot of different places. Your job category, by and large, right? It's not, you don't see people in the same place for a long time.
No, and I think it's a great question. I think we all face rejection and criticism in our jobs, but you add television journalism, and then you are criticized on how you look and how you sound, and so much is subjective. Someone might look at
your hair,
and your hair. Someone might look now and say, "Wow, I like her look," or someone might say, "I don't like her look." And I bring it up when I was in Albuquerque, and I was this hard-charging reporter. I had more exclusives than anyone else in my newsroom. I would be racing to the live shot, calling the detective, putting mascara on the minute I got there. I didn't spend any time, zero time on the cosmetics. And so when I was trying to get a job, I couldn't get a job. And I had people say, you should color your hair. You should fix your teeth. One of my teeth in the bottom was a little crooked. And I thought, are you kidding me? Really? Right? And I thought, but I'm such a hard worker and I'm getting all these exclusives. And then I finally got this job at Fox, and Fox said to me, anytime you're on the air, you must come to makeup and get hair and makeup before you go on the air. Like, we have a look and you need to have it. And I think I matured a little bit to realize, okay, I'm never going to be the glamour gal. I'm never going to be perfectly coiffed, but it is a visual business and I need to do some of that. Right. It is that's part of the business. And that was a sign of maturity, but it was frustrating and upsetting. And I felt bad. Like, they don't like me. They don't like the way I look. They don't like the way I sound. I wanted to anchor at another time in my career. And I think the message was, your voice isn't quite right. You don't have the gravitas. Like, there are those kinds of things that you get in this job because it's visual and people have a personal impression of you, but you just have to have thick skin to not, when I couldn't anchor at CBS and CNN, really, I thought, okay, well then I want to anchor. I'll just go do it where I can do it. And that led to iVillage, where I could host shows, and that turned out to be an amazing experience.
Tell us about iVillage, because I'm going to interject here. So I think I met Kelly first.
Yes.
I think it was I referenced the, for me, monumental experience of Maria Shriver and her
women's conference.
She was the wife of the governor of California's conference. And they had this big expo. And I remember walking in And there you were. Now, I think I had met you once before because I felt like, oh, there's Kelly Wallace. I'm going to go talk to Kelly Wallace. I knew, by the way, I knew your name.
Okay.
And it was just
hit it off.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I wrote her name down and said, I'm going to be in touch with this woman. She was amazing because the work you were doing, I thought was so thoughtful and so ahead of its time. And you were so passionate about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally loved meeting you, and we hit it off right away. And then I remember when you called me, you were in New York and you wanted to get together, and you said, I do this conference, it's Generation W, bringing together women from all across the country. I mean, I don't even know if you finished your sentence. I said, I'm in. What can I do? And because that Maria Shriver, annual women's conference was so amazing and inspirational and moving. And, for my thing was, I was at CBS. I had Hattie, my first daughter, right before I went to CBS. And then I had Lily when I was at CBS. So I got very interested, of course, like we all do when we become moms, issues affecting moms. I really always was very focused on women in the workforce, working women, working mothers, women in leadership. And I found myself starting to try to do stories and then using something called Twitter, which was this new tool back in 2009. And I would get this incredible response from women who were online and engaging. And I say I was really late to the party. I mean, I think women were doing this late 90s, early 2000s. And I just thought there is a whole energy here of women online. And I'm passionate about these issues personally, if there's a way to work on them professionally. So I always had iVillage as a target. It was then, as you said, really one of the only digital platforms focusing on women. I will say it wasn't really a platform that totally spoke to me. I felt like it may not have been as substantive of a platform that I wanted. And I think we have those now. But I then I had to really pitch them hard and give them like, why can't I come on to do X? And Jody Kahn was the president, and she was like, let's do it. You remember Jody? Yeah. And Lauren Zelaznik, another name, and was there. And so they didn't have a job, but they created this chief correspondent role where I would be doing on-air stuff for iVillage, helping with other content. And it was just a home run for me personally. And I think a home run for iVillage, because we ended up getting opportunities on MSNBC and NBC stations. We did some stuff on the Today Show. And the Michelle Obama experience, I think, was we got to do interviews with lots of different people. And at that time, Michelle Obama's team was really smart in looking at digital media, focusing on women, right? So they didn't care about her sitting down always with CBS News or ABC. They really wanted her to go, where are women consuming content? People.com, iVillage.com. And so we got to do these roundtables with Michelle Obama. Again, I talked to people like, if I were CBS News, I would not be sitting on a roundtable with Michelle Obama. And then because of my White House experience, they chose me along with three other, national reporters, Wall Street Journal, AP, and New York Times, to follow her on her Let's Move tour a couple of years after Let's Move. And so I remember coming back and talking to Jody and others and say, we have this great connection with Michelle Obama. Why don't we see if we can get a big interview with her? And this is where Jody and Catherine Balsam-Schwaber, another amazing thought leader, they said, no, we should do something even bigger with Michelle Obama. We should have her be a guest editor of iVillage for a month or for a week. And that just led to this hour-long interview with Michelle Obama and her engaging in all kinds of content. So I think iVillage was ahead of its time in a lot of ways. And I was so glad to be there. Unfortunately, the money, then with Facebook and social media, I think that took away where women were connecting with each other in different ways and it wasn't able to adapt. But I do think in all these ways, it was ahead of its time in terms of women.
So you and Michelle are still tight, right?
Still tight. Everyone will love this story so Michelle Obama, I'm going to do this interview. She tells her top aide to tell Kelly to dress like a mom, like don't come in with the, suit and skirt, like dress like a mom. So I thought, I'm going to the White House. And if I dress like a mom, like my torn jeans or whatever, no, I can't do that. And so I dressed up because the first event she was doing something with kids and food with Epicurious or whatever. It was great. And she apparently saw me there and she thought, she's not dressed like a mom. And then I changed And then when she saw me, she laughed. She's like, okay, this is better. But we just had this great opportunity to connect, and she's down to earth, and she was talking mom to mom about issues, about concerns about Sasha and Malia, about, are they overscheduled? Is the White House going to impact them? I mean, just real issues. And but again, that would never have happened had I not taken a risk, gone for what I wanted, collaborated with thinkers who had better ideas than I did, was open to all kinds of suggestions. Like, there's so many different ways that came together, and I learned a lot from that experience.
Right. And because listen, I think that, and she remains so relevant and so real and so connected. I know that we'll work together on trying to get her for GenW for next year.
Yes, exactly. No.
You know, when I read her book, I mean, so much of her work, our work's parallel. I don't like it was just like, okay, so Kelly, everybody here can be part of this. We're all going to try to get her to come.
You know what? Right. I say that she's a very difficult get, but you know, I know her. We should start laying the groundwork. I mean, really, she would get of course, the inspiration and the soul and the connection from this conference that we all get. All right, let's all make it happen.
Let's all make it happen. I've met her twice too, because I was at the White House twice. And she's just amazing, right? Just amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, hands, and they, whatever. So, all right, we have a plan now.
All right, we now have our keynote guest for next year. I'm writing it down.
If we write it down, it makes it happen. Welcome everyone to Refresh. This is the time we get to connect and lift our spirits, learn together. We are with Kelly Wallace, the amazing journalist, writer, storyteller who was with CNN. She was at the White House, but now yet another turn in your professional journey. I think this is always important to all of us who are always building a journey. I think some people always think that life is a destination. You get to the place and you're like, you're done. I think maybe a valuable lesson that I've learned from you and from a lot of the people that are on this, Marty Evans, is that it's never a destination, right? Our lives are a journey. And so you came to this crossroads, and you said you love CNN, and then what happens?
Yeah, no, I love thinking about it's a journey, and you're always kind of faced with forks in the road. And sometimes you take the more traditional path. Sometimes you take the riskier path, and you can know you tried something and move on. Yeah. So for me, for the first time in my career, I was very focused, first on reporting, then on digital media. I really wanted to create at CNN a digital platform for content for women in community and conversation. We have so many amazing women at CNN creating so much content. And I saw the Fortune Most Powerful Women's model, right? Where couldn't we do something like that would also be a revenue producer? I say you get either yes or yes with money. I got yes. I didn't get yes with money. And so it really wasn't going anywhere. And so I was leaving CNN. And for the first time, I didn't really know. I wanted to do this women's idea, but it wasn't happening. And I knew I couldn't just start my own, platform and hope to make money in 2050. I mean, we're a dual income family, 2 kids, college, everybody can relate. And one other person said, well, what about communications? And I'll be honest, I always kind of pushed communications, like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, no. And then this is where I always say you should expand your network beyond your network. My husband was at Bloomberg at the time, and Jim Wilkinson's name came up. Jim was a communications director in the Bush White House. When I was a correspondent, we had very nice engagements, but we butted heads, but in a respectful way, incredibly smart. He went on to head comms for Alibaba and PepsiCo, worked with Condi and Hank Paulson at Treasury. So I just reached out to him, not for a job. I just reached out like, you know me, you know what I can do. I'm trying to think what's out there. And he said, well, you can go work in communications. You can go work at a big company. You could go work at an agency. It just so happens I'm looking for someone to run our New York office. Let's talk. And so we started talking. I met the amazing people at TrailRunner. I say this, I've worked a lot of places. I don't know that I've ever worked at a place where so collaborative, intellectually curious, smart, coming together from various perspectives. I loved the team. I loved everything about it. I just didn't know if I was going to like the work. Let me just say, I also wanted a job where my media experience was going to be valued. At CNN in the last few years, I didn't really feel valued, 20 plus years, didn't really feel like I was getting the same kind of value or, feeling valued. So this job would be that. But would I like the job? And in a way, that was an unknown. I was just doing an interview with someone, a potential candidate for us, and who's coming to us from production. It's a little bit of an unknown. You don't know it until you do it. But I learned enough about the job. I was doing a little bit of client relations in terms of when he did branded content at CNN. And I love the variety. I love the people. And I feel a lot that I'm using a lot of my journalistic, instincts in terms of what's a story, who to approach, building on my relationships. It's been really an incredible journey that I would never have thought of had I not really talked to Jim Wilkinson that day.
Yeah, and so that took courage, and we're going to talk about courage. Before we get there, though, I want to go back to my co-host today, Irene Britt's next question. She's got some good ones.
She's great,
Irene.
Yeah.
For women who want to reinvent their careers, and you know what, that could be on an annual basis.
Yeah,
many of us, right? We often have a harder time letting go of our previous images, relationships, right? Who we were and how we were identified as well.
Yes.
What might be some good advice to shed our old selves?
Irene, that is such a good question, and really such a hard thing to do. Well, one of the things is just what I said, expand your network beyond your network, because what I was finding is everyone within media only saw me as Kelly Wallace, content creator, reporter, digital correspondent, sometime anchor. No one could see me as maybe a strategic thinker or planner or business development or leadership. So I do think that part of it is expanding, your network beyond, because those people don't necessarily have those same perceptions of you that your, kind of immediate network might. I also think it's exploring, thinking about, you have to do some legwork, right? You have to figure out what you want to do. It's spending time thinking about it and talking to people who are doing those things that can help you learn a little bit more and see what in yourself is connected. Rethinking, we try to do this now too with a lot of people that we work with, is skills, like not thinking as much of your title or where you were, but what skills did you have there? And how can you apply those skills to another opportunity? I think most of us who have been working in our careers for 25 plus years know that. Sometimes it's harder for people more junior, but maybe it's even harder for people later in life too, but it's skills. So what skills did you have there and how can you apply them? So you're getting yourself away from the identity of Kelly Wallace, correspondent, or Kelly Wallace works for CNN, and it's Kelly Wallace storyteller, or Kelly Wallace creative thinker, or Kelly Wallace strategist who can handle crisis because she worked in breaking news for 20 years. So I think, and that's important to do both for yourself. It's also important to do as we change our narrative and try to get someone to hire you when you haven't had those 15 years in that exact job that they want.
Right. So it's funny. So Lisa Shallon had also posted this question, which is, what is the best way for one to tell one's own story? First of all, you have to believe that your skills are transferable to be able to speak about them. But what's the best way to do that, Kelly?
It's great question, Lisa. No, I think you have to believe it. I think you have to practice it, right? Because I think you want to sort of spend time with it, practice it with friends and others who can kind of poke holes in what you're thinking, and always anticipate what we do this as journalists, we do this as when we work with companies, always anticipate the questions that people will have. I'll always get the question from people like, wow, why did you go from journalism or news, TV news to iVillage? Or why did you go from CNN to TrailRunner Strategic Communications? So I think always anticipating the questions will help you answer them and help you figure out how to take your experience, your skills, and transfer them. It's interesting. I listen to Morning Joe, like the last 5 minutes, if I drop my kids off, and I can like listen in the car for about 5 minutes. And Mika, who does a lot for women, Mika Brzezinski, as we know, she had a couple of women on, experts with the 2 million plus women who've left the workforce during the pandemic, and how difficult it is going to be to get back. But in one of them, they said, own your narrative. Don't say, like, oh, I was out, because talk about what you were doing. Talk about the things that you have done during the pandemic that can be, applicable in terms of juggling schools, multitasking, working on whatever, so that you can answer the questions people might ask, but also you can kind of control the narrative and influence the way they think about the skills that you have even developed during the pandemic. I thought that was a very smart way to think about it.
Absolutely. Like founding a organization that features women on boards. Like that's pretty astounding, right?
Exactly.
You spoke about courage, Kelly, and I want to get back to that because you have been through a lot in your career, a lot of different places. You spoke about rejection early. So you gave us some of these thoughts. We thought maybe we'd share. This is Courage by Kelly.
I love that.
Some more good advice by Kelly.
Yeah, you guys are so great. Yeah, no, we were talking about this. I think, right, first take risks, right? We talked about that. The risk of going from a CBS to an iVillage, and look what that led me. A bigger risk, maybe to some degree, of course, going from Washington, a cushy producer job, and then going to New Mexico. Also at CNN, I was at CNN 3 times. My second tour of duty, I got an offer that I didn't really think I was pregnant with my daughter Hattie, and the offer that they were going to give me when I came back from maternity leave just didn't feel like the same level job that was going to work for me. So having the courage to say no. I mean, thankfully we had savings, and so I could do that, and it is a choice that I was lucky to have. But take a risk of saying no, that's not going to work for me, and then finding a new opportunity, which was CBS News. So being able to take risks, follow your gut. I mean, I've been lucky that my gut has really led me. I knew I had the dream of being a reporter, and I knew that until I made that happen, I wasn't going to be satisfied. I knew that when I couldn't do what I wanted to do at CBS, and I was very interested in women in digital media, to go to iVillage. So I think that our gut can help us in our day-to-day lives, decisions we make, but also in terms of our career aspirations, and embrace the uncomfortable. I think it's hard, right? It gets easy to stay in the same position, and it's scarier going from being a producer at CNN, where I was doing really well, to go be a reporter. I don't know if I'm going to succeed. Even this job, I remember talking to my husband saying, I don't know, can I be a strategic communications leader and executive? It's a little scary. It was stressful in the beginning. Wonderfully great collaborative team who were willing to give me some time to get my sea legs. And I think we all know that we all can do a lot. We have a lot of skills. We have a lot of resilience. We can probably do anything. So it's okay to feel uncomfortable. I think it's good. And I think we learn a lot about ourselves, and also take maybe some risks that we wouldn't take if we weren't comfortable embracing that discomfort.
I just want to repeat that. We have a lot of resilience, and we can do anything. And the truth of the matter is, we do a lot of uncomfortable things that we slide through every day. But there are those things that are like, oh my God, can I really do this? I talk to myself about that. I talk myself through those situations, interestingly enough. So I'm going to go back to our conversation. We meet, I asked you to do GenW. You say yes. It is the beginning of a storied partnership. Love it.
Love it.
We're coming off GenW. And again, I want to thank all of the women who are tuning in to Refresh for the first time, and who are first-time attendees at GenW. We like to keep the spirit going. For those of you who've not seen Kelly throughout the years, like some of you have, once again, Sherry put together this wonderful montage of Kelly Wallace doing her magic on the GenW stage.
Hello, everybody. How are you? You're good? You're enjoying yourselves? This is my 4th time at Generation W, and I like to tell Donna that she had me in the first minutes of my first conference, right?
It takes just one girl, then one more, and another, and like a trickle becomes a powerful river of hope. Their collective inspiration, we know it, we see it, can change the world. I think so much of this conference has been about, taking time for ourselves, right? For us to be the best worker, the best professional, the best parent, the best friend, the best partner, we need to be nurturing, right? Our inner spirit.
I want to pick up on there and then bring Pat in, because also, as we said, not everyone feels like they have the power or the resources or the opportunity to stand up and say Me Too. They're worried about the consequences. They're worried about their jobs. They're worried if they're going to be believed or not. So if you can speak to that now about how do we change that? How do we get to the point where Me Too really is something that women of all shapes and sizes, all backgrounds can experience and support?
So I want to get to our fabulous panelists. I'm going to give just very quickly a couple of stats to say how far we've come and how much things have changed, but how much more we have to do.
I've never been to a conference with so much soul and passion and energy and heart as this one.
And then here she is today. Isn't that amazing?
Oh my, well, Sherry is incredible. That is so, what I think about is, first of all, what I said at that end, that's what I felt. I mean, we've all been to a lot of women's conferences. And for those of you watching who attended your first one on Friday, I will guarantee, I'm like 98% certain you will be back next year. It is just this incredible collection of spirit, of inspiration. And then Donna, you're always so good, you and Sherry and Katja and everybody else, in terms of the topics that you come up with. You know, we did women in law enforcement. And do you remember that moment when we had all these women in law enforcement standing there together? And that was just incredible. We talked about, we had that panel on women in sports, and we talked about Me Too and moving forward. So I always feel like you've just been ahead of your time too on those issues that we're starting to talk about or starting to think about. And then after GenW, it's like everybody is talking about them. So kudos to you and your fabulous colleagues.
Yeah, and this year was so fortunate that we had Robin and Lisa. We talked about addiction, and we planned it. We planned it for over a year with our other friend Ita, who works with their company, and you just never know. And the reaction to that conversation.
I was following some of the chat, the live chat, because I missed some of that, and I was following it when I came back, and it was just, after everything that we've been through as a country after the pandemic or during the pandemic, and those are issues that people don't always want to talk about, or are afraid to talk about, and how important it is to talk about them and figure out what we can do to help people in our lives. So I loved that. That was great.
Thank you. And that was also what struck me, was the first thing on the chat when somebody said, like, this is me, I never get to talk about this. And that's kind of like refresh. We can talk about these things in a safe space, in a welcoming and warm space. When you look at all the people who join us, of course, I mean, here's Melinda giving you a tribute, talking about your reasonable career risks, and all the credit going to you for trusting yourself and finding support to try something new. It just shows we're so much more than who we are in the roles than what we're in. And just to see that in our chat, right?
I know.
Melissa Wolf, it's a time and a space we don't give ourselves enough of in a world that's so filled with swirl, right? And you've contributed so much. And I should tell everybody, Kelly was supposed to be there in 2019. And she was supposed to do the now rather famous Dr. Edith Eger interview. And she called me, and she was forlorn and totally despondent because she was ill and couldn't come.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? Because, we deal with last minute things often, as you know, in this kind of work that we do. And that was when I shared with Dr. Eger that my good friend Kelly was not going to be able to come. And she grabbed my hand and she goes, why don't you come and you just come stay on the stage with me? And I'm like, oh my God, of course I get apoplectic the night before and whatever. But I will tell you, we have to do that together, because it was one of the greatest privileges truly to sit beside that woman in my life. And not only sit beside her, but to watch everyone's face. I remember Jamie Olkin, she's on our board, and she's done a couple of refreshments with us, sitting in like the fourth row with her camera, like her phone, transfixed, getting every word that Dr. Eger said. Everybody totally transfixed by this woman who had such an incredible story. Incredible.
I have heard from so many of our dear friends and people we love who love GenW that they said that was one of the most unforgettable moments, maybe the most unforgettable moment of GenW. And while of course I was hated to make that call, and I was sick, and obviously I couldn't change that. That was I was dealing with something that I couldn't resolve quickly. But I think about it now, and I thought, you know what? It's even better that you sat there with her on that stage. Yeah, it is. Because first of all, you're so good at it, and you have so much heart and soul, and to be with that person who has, had everyone just sort of mesmerized and had such an impact. And while she's in a class by herself, I feel that every year there are a number of speakers who do that, who we feel this, we're moved by, and whether you're going to go make a change in your life or your personal life or your relationships, it's time that we don't spend enough of. We really reflect and let ourselves connect, and are always moved by the people we hear, and the openness. I think that's the other thing about GenW. I mean, look at the addiction panel from Friday, but you've had speakers who are, really open, whether it's about breast cancer or different struggles in their lives, and really raw to stand up in front of 1,000 people to do that. But it's a safe space, no judgment. And we all learn a lot from each other when we open up and show our vulnerabilities. I think that's the other thing that happens at GenW that I don't think ever happens at any other conference I've been to.
Wow, that's. Did you have a favorite moment this year? Anybody here want to share their favorite moment on the chat? That would be great. Did you have a moment you just want to?
I want to hear what the people in the chat did. I didn't hear the whole panel on addiction, but that was certainly one of my, that just, addiction in my family. It's just a powerful, I loved seeing people talking about that, and the openness to talk about it. And I liked John's speech about like the single most important quality, right? I think he talked about the single biggest ingredients in success is grit. And I loved that. And I think, that stays with me, especially as a parent, and trying to make sure that our kids have that. I just thought that it's not like what school you went to, it's not who your parents are, it's not how much money you have. I think that's a really important message to get to young people as well, so that they know that the odds may be stacked against them, but like if they have, that grit, and that, they're resilient, and they work hard and are committed, that they can make their dreams happen. I thought that was great too.
Yeah, it is great. You mentioned you might want to write a book. And what are you thinking?
I don't know. I mean, I think I really would like to, but it's like not writing a book for writing a book's sake. So it would have to be something that at some point I'm sure it will be connected to women and the connection of women. And there'll probably be something autobiographical in there. I don't think memoir, but I grew up, my father was an alcoholic, and that, just sort of with certain hardships, and yeah, that would probably have to be in there in some way. And he passed away in the summer of 2020 last year, and never really resolved it. So.
Yes. And I what was your dad's name?
William
Wallace?
Uh-huh.
Oh my God, William Wallace, like the guy who had his
Yeah, you get me emotional. Let's talk about something else.
Okay, we definitely can. We'll talk about the fact that I think it's Jean. Jean said, stressing is a blessing, which is Dr. Heidi Hanna, who's also been with us.
Oh, she's amazing.
The blessing was a great session, and that it brought forward what you're talking about. We're not alone in our feelings, especially now with the additional stress from the pandemic and changes both professionally and personally because of it. The day, every day feels like a change. Like today, I just want to thank my hostess. Where's Billy Joe Burr? I'm in a new location today. My house was so loud. I couldn't get out of it and go to the office. So I called up Billy, and she said, sure, come on over.
I love it.
And she hosted 20 women here for Generation W. And one of them called me this morning, Lakeisha Burton. Many of you know, she's been on our stage, and said, it was so fantastic to be in that intimate setting with 20 women in person. right? It was just like, wow. I mean, it's all so good.
Yeah, and I was telling Donna and Sherry, for all the other folks who watch GenW, that one of my favorite things, and that gave it an intimacy, were the bumps kind of in and out, and hearing from, you know, so many people, Melinda, Lisa, Ita, everyone is sharing their thoughts about what GenW meant to them. It just added just another layer to the power of GenW. So I love that aspect too. And it's interesting to think about people watching it in groups. That's another.
Yeah, yes, we can put together, we can get all the trail runner communications, especially Billy Joe just came in. Billy Joe, I'm just thanking you for allowing me to be here. And and we're planning on Michelle Obama for next year. Kelly Wallace is working with us on it. We're speaking it out.
No pressure now, right?
Right?
No
And
pressure
Tina Wilson will do another great musical piece, and it will all be great.
Yes.
So here, I always take notes on these, Kelly. So I love when you said and reminded us that we should not wake up in our 50s or whatever age it is, and wish you would have done something or went for your dreams. And that ties into this video we have of you about no regrets, which we'll hold off on now. And the other one I really loved, I mean, there's so much you said, but anticipate the questions. Anticipate the questions. And that I really spoke to how we convey our own stories and how we want to shift into another mindset, how we're seen in our own mindset. So what questions will people ask us? If we anticipate them, then we will be ready for that, which I think is great. And then in closing, we have a lot of resilience and we can do anything. And Kelly, I have to say, sharing your career from Albuquerque to from Brooklyn,
yes,
Albuquerque to Washington, D.C., back to New York. You showed us in that so much courage, but so much grace and so much smarts and so much inspiration and love. You know, you're part of the Women in America group, which is a mentoring group up in New York that's so powerful. And you know, you brought so much to that and have been so embraced. So I just want to thank you for saying yes all those times ago. We now know that we've got a lot to do, all of us together. So thanks for laying that out. You're going to get Michelle. I'm going to get Edie to come back. You know, she's what, 93 now, and she travels across the country. Maybe she'll come. Can you imagine Edie and Michelle together?
Oh my God, that would be amazing. So,
and then all of us, I mean, we're just like, you know, cherries on the top. That would be so great. Let me thank everybody, if I can, for joining us today. A special thank you to our producer, Sherry Levin, who is always amazing, and Connie for helping us, and Mariah, who's over on the Facebook side. Everybody is chipping in, and I really appreciate it. For those of you who have seen GenW, a lot of people are calling. You'll be getting your links. You will have access to it, because I know there's so many people that want to see things again or might have missed something. For those who you haven't, I wanted to thank Lisa Shallot for brainstorming this with me, which is for a donation. We will make that link available to you and a friend. $99 to you and a friend that you will have access to for, I think, a window of about 4 weeks. So it's not too late for you to have the GenW experience, and it's not too late for you to share it. Not only will you be sharing the opportunity for this work to be enabled, but you'll also be able to share the gift of inspiration and connectedness. That's all Generation W. And if we were doing a real show, Sherry, at this point in time, the music would come up and the credits would roll, and we'd blow you a kiss and we'd say, thank you so much. Our hearts are full. Stay inspired, everybody. Take care.
Thank you all so much.